What if Bitcoin could soar to $475,000 or even $1 million within the next few years? Jeff Ross, founder of Vailshire Capital Management, believes we're on the verge of a massive bull run that could reshape your financial future. He argues that the volatility of Bitcoin is a small price to pay compared to the eroding power of fiat currency. If you're ready to learn why now might be the perfect time to invest, you're in the right place. Let's dive into Dr. Ross's bold predictions and insights on Bitcoin's future.
I think that the annualized rate of return of Bitcoin does diminish over time, but I don't necessarily think that the peak cycle behavior, like what we saw, the dampened peak back in 2021, I think that was a fluke. So I don't think it's going to continue like that. And I know there's some prominent people over on Twitter X who believe that the cycle peaks are diminishing, and I just disagree with that. I think what happened in 2021 was we were on our way to Bitcoin heading up above 100,000, and I had about 125,000 targeted. And then China did that ban, and they came out of left field, and they literally within a month dropped the hash rate of Bitcoin by about 50% or so. And that was a legitimate exogenous shock to the Bitcoin network that took time to recover from. And all the miners had to relocate in different parts of the world. People had to sell tons of Bitcoin to pay for these kind of things. That was a huge shock. Basically, it's almost like a meteor coming and hitting the earth, and it had to recover from that. Because of that, I think that by the time Bitcoin price started to recover and got back up to about 69,000. By that point, the liquidity cycle was starting to roll over. It was already peaking and was going to roll over. So global M2 was heading over, and people saw that inflation was going to be a concern. The economy was getting a little hot, so they were starting to put the brakes on. And so Bitcoin didn't have a chance to do that long last push, that exponential push higher. So anyways, because of that, I think that was a fluke. And I think people who base too much research off that, I think are going to be wrong they're going to miss some upside potential. They're all selling out at 200K because they think that's the appropriate peak. They have the chance of missing out. I mean, my price target is 475,000 fourth quarter of 2025, and that might be low. It could be too high, but it could also be too low. I could see Bitcoin going up to 700,000 or 800,000 or even touching $1 million this cycle before 2025 is over. I'm of the opinion that we're at the very beginning of the next bull move higher. And that it's not just Bitcoin. I think risk assets in general. So even though stocks are very overvalued, people keep talking about the CAPE ratio and price to sales and things like that the metrics that people look at for valuation. Technology stocks are very highly valued right now, but that doesn't mean they can't go higher. And the whole point of liquidity is when you have liquidity coming into the system, that causes multiple expansion on risk assets. Just like when liquidity is withdrawn, it causes multiple contraction. It doesn't really matter what the valuations are, it's whether or not the multiples are expanding or contracting, and that's a direct result of the underlying liquidity. Almost nobody understands that, but that's a hugely important lesson for investing in general. And so, how should people respond? I think this is not the time to be too cautious. I know lots of people who are sitting in cash and short-term T-bills and some gold, which is gold has done well, but cash and T-bills, they're happy earning their 5%. T-bill and chill, I think they like to say. And I'm just like, that's fine, but you are going to miss out. And by the time they get over their fears of this recession that they think is coming, which I truly believe is not coming here in the United States anytime soon, at the earliest, maybe by the end of 2025, but probably somewhere in 2026, they're going to be sitting on the sidelines, and they're probably going to miss the first 100% move of Bitcoin. They probably won't get in until it's up around the 120, 150,000 range. That's fine, and they'll still get to ride it up for a little bit longer. But if I just like to encourage people, there are times to be cautious and there are times to be aggressive and to be bold. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that right now is the time to be aggressive and to be bold. This is where you make money, because you make hay while the sun shines, and the sun is starting to shine now. Well, this is another thing that's often said. So among traditional finance people and a lot of investment advisors and people, I got my MBA in finance years ago, and I learned the same stuff. It's risk equals volatility, right? And so people are very concerned about volatility, and they hate volatile assets. And I tell people that risk only equals volatility in academia. Their true financial risk is the chance of losing your purchasing power over time. And so if you are sitting in treasuries that are actually, you're getting getting 5% nominally, but you may be losing money in real purchasing power terms, that is very risky. Even if it's not volatile, if you just know that your purchasing power is declining over time in bonds or in low volatile stocks or in whatever asset, maybe real estate or gold, pick your asset, that is true risk, the risk of losing your purchasing power over time. And so one thing that Bitcoin has shown over its first 15 years of existence, even though it's volatile, it drastically increases your purchasing power over time. And so I think it's an integral part, or it should be an integral part of everybody's portfolio. Everyone should have at least some exposure to Bitcoin. And the more you understand Bitcoin, the more you'll own Bitcoin. And it's so funny when you put it in those kind of terms. If you just think of Bitcoin as savings technology and compare it to the dollar, I'm like, well, would you rather get wealthier but with volatility over time, or would you rather get poorer with no volatility over time? Because you can get no volatility and just have all your money in a bank checking or savings account, but you'll literally be poorer over time. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Just like it's a fact that you'll increase in purchasing power the longer you hold Bitcoin. So
Dr. Jeff Ross shares his insights on the Bitcoin market, challenging the notion that its peak cycles are diminishing. He argues that the dampened peak we saw in 2021 was an anomaly caused by unexpected external shocks, not a signal of a long-term decline. With a price target as high as $475,000 for Bitcoin by the end of 2025, he's optimistic about its potential, asserting that those who hesitate may miss out on life-changing gains. But it's not just about price. Dr. Ross delves into the philosophy of Bitcoin as a savings technology, contrasting it with the pitfalls of fiat currency, which can leave investors poorer over time. So, if you want to know how to position yourself to take advantage of the coming bull market, the vital lessons Dr. Ross shares are ones you won't want to miss. Stay tuned as we explore the future of Bitcoin and how you can benefit from this revolutionary asset.
And then another thing is, I think when your cost basis is low enough that you realize that the price, even in a bad bear market, probably won't go below your cost basis, you can kind of relax too and just ride it out. I have my convictions of where I think Bitcoin's going to be in 10 years, in 20 years, and I try to keep that in mind, that anything I sell today, I'll regret it deeply 20 or 10 years from now or so. And so just keep holding on and not worrying so much about the fiat value of it, because I know in my heart that Bitcoin, regardless of the fiat price, that Bitcoin is price go down technology, so the price of everything will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper over time in Bitcoin, regardless of what fiat currency we hold. When the price goes down in a bear market really severely because we're getting margin calls, I call that a leveraged long liquidation cascade. And so you can get that cascade higher though during bull markets, to your point. So when people, this is one of my things that I try to tell people, especially if you're new to the Bitcoin space, you have no idea how fast the price can go higher during a bull market, a raging bull market. And I think it's very unwise to do a covered call strategy during a bull market, because you're going to get hit and the price will surge past it and you're going to be forced to buy it, and you're not going to be enjoying the upside gains that you could if you would just simply buy and hold it, not play these little games. And so
I love that.
The strategies can work well, but most people aren't smart enough, and most people put on leverage and use options at exactly the wrong time. They get all excited, and that's what's going to happen this time too. I'm fairly convinced, if it's anything like past cycles, is we'll be in the third quarter probably of 2025 and the price will be ripping higher, maybe 200 to 300,000 or something, and people are going to pile on leverage and they're going to pile on call options because they're going to be convinced that Bitcoin is going to go to 1 million or something like that. I think it is a once in a species invention, and it's technology that I really believe is going to reshape the world. It's going to shape humanity in a different way. And I don't like to, a lot of people get sort of religious about this, and I don't like that, but to build societies and governments and families on Bitcoin is just completely different than anything that humans have ever experienced before. The closest we had was maybe a gold-backed system, which was a fairly accurate measuring stick. It just incentivizes completely different human behavior, and it incentivizes, it's proof of work technology, and you have to put energy and work into it in order to accumulate it. And that's awesome. And it's awesome for people who have suffered, going back to what we were originally talking about with the broken money and income inequality. The people who are kind of in the lower income strata right now all around the world, they will benefit greatly from this, because all they got to do is work and save. And if you can save in Bitcoin, your purchasing power will increase over time. And for people who think that helps you to think think with that low time preference, instead of just thinking about tomorrow and how am I going to pay my bills next week or next month, you can start thinking about decades ahead. And you can start, I call it, I think we're going to have I call it the age of legends. I think we're going to have this new, almost a renaissance of humanity doing incredible things, because you can start planning 10 years out, 100 years out, 500 years out, because we know that Bitcoin will preserve and appreciate your purchasing power over time and over space. And it's really incredible. We've never experienced this as humanity. So I'm excited to, unfortunately, I'll be dead probably before a lot of this cool stuff will happen, but I'm excited.
Maybe we'll have to cryo something.
Maybe. But I'm excited for my grandkids and, future great grandkids. It'll be a better world. I think it is a philosophy too, and I think it's kind of getting to that high time preference versus low time preference. I think it's an incentive system that incentivizes you to think critically and think in the long term versus in the short term. It's easier to think about what Bitcoin is when you compare it to how it's different from fiat. And fiat creates so much stress. It's unhealthy. It causes divorce. It causes huge problems. And you spend your life and I know lots and lots and lots of people who feel like they've been working a career for 20, 30, 40 years, and they feel like all they do is work for the man. They feel like they're a slave to the system and they can never get ahead. And Bitcoin flips that on its head. And you take that responsibility upon yourself. And as you save up, you're actually increasing your purchasing power and increasing your optionality. And so it does sort of create a different philosophy, a different way to live life. And most Bitcoiners I know, and I know you're probably the same, the ones you know are just generally more relaxed and stress-free. They tend to enjoy their families and their free time more. It's really interesting to see the difference. They're more focused on their health. They tend to be pursuers of truth in general, whatever that kind of means. Like they just want to know what is the truth, not what somebody says is the truth, but like what really is the truth. And I think it's because we all grew up in this fiat system, and fiat is just a lie. It only has value by decree. It doesn't have any underlying value. It's not really backed by anything. And so Bitcoiners as a whole tend to have moved in a different direction, seeking truth and looking long term. It's just a much healthier outlook in general.
Yeah. As we conclude this insightful conversation with Dr. Jeff Ross, it's evident that Bitcoin is more than just an investment. It's a revolutionary financial force. His views challenge us to rethink our strategies in a world where fiat currencies often leave us feeling vulnerable. If you found Dr. Ross's insights compelling, now is the time to consider how you can benefit from Bitcoin's potential growth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more valuable content. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin's future? Thanks for watching. And remember, knowledge is power in the world of cryptocurrency.